I'm Farhan Dalla, transformational trainer, and welcome to Elevate Your Life, a transformational podcast, an invitation to take the journey towards your deepest self. It is my intention to inspire you to connect, move, and meditate. We'll tap in, tune in, and dive in, and together learn and reflect from authentic, real, and transformative conversations. Let's get started. This podcast is for educational purposes only and does not provide medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional regarding your health or medical conditions. Always seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it because of something you heard on this podcast. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Season 4, Episode 1 of Elevate Your Life, a transformational podcast. I'm so excited to share with you the information regarding my own personal healing journey. Some of you may have seen a side-by-side image that I posted on my social medias of two x-rays of my spine. The first image was taken on October of 2024. And in that image, there are two clear curvatures. In addition to that, my pelvis was tilted and rotated. This led to a diagnosis of scoliosis. And I had been experiencing chronic pain in my lower back for approximately 4 years. The second image was taken in December of 2025. And as you can see, if you haven't already, definitely check it out. If you compare the two images, in the second one, there is no longer any scoliosis and there's very minimal tilt or rotation. Today's episode will be about my healing journey and how I corrected and frankly healed my scoliosis and ended chronic pain. In October of 2021, I had a back injury lifting dumbbells at the gym. I had treatment, including physiotherapy and some acupuncture, and I utilized all the skills that I know as a physiotherapist to help support my injury, but the pain didn't go away completely. However, because of my job, I know of some really good doctors, and so I made an appointment with a sports medicine physician. After his examination, he decided to order an MRI. Now, according to the MRI report and his diagnosis, I had some arthritis in my lower back. Now, his suggestion was to send me to a pain clinic and get injections where they burn the nerve endings in my lower back so I don't feel the pain anymore. Well, I thought about it a lot and I was really reluctant to go down that path. And so I decided to cancel the appointment. I had various intensities of pain over the course of 3 years, with some improvement. I didn't have constant pain, but to some degree, I had symptoms daily. I wasn't debilitated. I was still able to go to work and I was still able to work out, but I had to make a lot of modifications. I couldn't stand for long periods of time, and if I did, my back would start to ache. I couldn't walk for more than 30 minutes. And if I did, I would have to take breaks. And I modified my workout so that I wasn't lifting heavy and avoiding things that aggravated my lower back. Around 2023, roughly September of 2023, I started diving into Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. I was first introduced to Dr. Joe in the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? And subsequently, I heard him speak live at a Hay House event here in Toronto. So I was a bit familiar with his work. And just to give you a bit of his background, Dr. Joe Dispenza is a chiropractor, an author, and lecturer. He is known for his work on mind-body healing, neuroscience, and personal transformation, blending quantum physics with ancient wisdom to teach people how to change their reality through meditation and changing beliefs stemming from his own recovery from a spinal injury. The origin of his story is that he suffered a spinal injury that left him paralyzed, and he was told he was never going to walk again. Applying the principles that he knew, he was able to heal his back and not only walk again, but return to training as an athlete because he was a triathlete at the time, and also go back to work as a chiropractor. I'm going to leave the link to his website as well as the books that I've read in his notes. Feel free to check Dr. Joe's Dispenza's work and his website out for more information. I read Becoming Supernatural and I started doing his meditations. I started with his morning and evening meditation, but later progressed to a meditation called the Blessings of the Energy Center meditation. Now, he has a whole series in that title, but in my case, after reading the descriptions and getting a sense of where I was at, I started with the fourth one in the series. After following his work, watching YouTube, reading his books, and speaking to others who were studying his work, I knew that I had to go to one of his retreats. Dr. Joe teaches his meditations and his work at retreats. And so I decided I was going to go. And so last year in Orlando, last year in September of 2024, I went to Orlando to a Dr. Joe 7-day retreat. And during that retreat, we did several meditations, and some of them were walking meditations. After the very first walking meditation, we were back in his ballroom where Dr. Joe was giving us a lecture. Well, when he, gave us an opportunity to take a break, I got up from my chair and my back went out on me. Now, this pain came back and it felt just like it did the day I lifted those heavy dumbbells off the floor. I was in agony. Lucky for me, I had met a physician there who specializes in pain at the retreat. And so I immediately found him and got some pain meds and patches to help me get through. I also met a lovely lady who I was sitting next to, and she was helping me and supporting me through some really difficult situations, and I was in a lot of pain. I also decided to go see the medic on site. Now, the medic, when I first started to explain to her what was happening with my back, she immediately looked at me and said that this was related to my father. And I was like, "What? My father?" I I wasn't expecting that. I had gone to basically get some medical attention for my back and medical support. But what I didn't know was that she was an intuitive, and she said, "Sometimes I get this information, so I'm letting you know. I feel like this is related to your dad." And so I was like, "Okay." I walked out of there kind of dumbfounded because my father had already transitioned for approximately 10 years. And as far as I knew, there was nothing in regards to healing in terms of my relationship with him. In fact, on his deathbed, I even thanked him for being my father. And I just felt complete with that relationship. But after a full day, approximately 10 hours of meditating, I decided to go back to my hotel room and I did the Blessings of the Energy Center meditation on my own, laying on the floor of my hotel. I set the intention that I wanted this pain's history or origin to be revealed to me. And what happened next completely took me by surprise. After the meditation, as I lay there resting, a memory surfaced. And in that memory, I was 2.5 years old and I was at the airport with my mother and my father was getting on a plane. In 1973, my parents migrated from Tanzania to Canada in Toronto, where I live now. I was only 2.5 years old at that time, and I don't have a lot of memories about that whole transition period. However, when my parents arrived, they were really struggling, and it was a very difficult transition coming to another country, starting all over, finding work. My mother had never worked before and had to find work for the first time in her life. She broke her leg while working, and it was just challenge after challenge. And so together they decided that this wasn't working out and it was best for us to return. So the plan that they put into motion was that my dad was going to go ahead, and once he got things organized and was settled, he was going to send back for us. So in my memory that surfaced, we're at the airport. My mom's holding me, and my dad is at the gate, and we're at the gate with him, and he's leaving. And somehow my 2.5-year-old mind felt that my father was actually leaving us and wasn't coming back. And so this whole idea that he was abandoning us developed into a wound that somehow manifested into my back. And so I was living from a subconscious script for years that everyone that loves me is just going to leave me. When my father returned to Tanzania, he realized that the situation there was far worse and we were better off back in Canada. So he returned not too long after that, but the imprint of the wound was still there for me. And I didn't understand the entire situation. And so I had been living with this wound since. And then I realized it explained why many of my relationships didn't work out. I had no idea that I had this emotional wound that I'd been carrying since the age of 2.5, and that this wound had manifested into my back. And so I just believed that everyone that loved me was just going to leave me. I managed to get through the retreat, but I was in a lot of pain. Dr. Joe has us dancing, you know, after our breaks, before we sit down and lecture, and it's just a way to amplify and raise the energy in the room. And I wasn't able to participate to the degree I would have liked, but I stood there and I kind of moved to the best of my abilities. But despite that, I had some pretty big breakthroughs with the breath work that he taught us. And when I returned after the retreat, I found a chiropractor. I decided to try someone I didn't work with, someone I didn't know who could give me a different perspective. I didn't want to go back to the sports medicine doctor because I knew that his recommendation would be to just get the pain injections. This chiropractor did a standing x-ray, which revealed I had the scoliosis with the tilt and the rotation of the pelvis. And this diagnosis was shocking to me. But when I got the diagnosis, something had shifted for me. After being in Orlando and knowing what I knew about Dr. Joe and how he healed his spine, but also meeting some incredible people that have been doing his work and all the success stories and the healing journeys that I heard, I decided and knew in that moment I was not going to accept that I would have a future of chronic low back pain. And I felt empowered and I knew that I could heal this. The chiropractor put me on a treatment protocol that would require me to see her 1 to 2 times per week, and there were exercises. Now, as I reflect back, there were 6 critical steps towards my healing, or I should say 7. There were 7 critical steps towards my healing. And I decided the first step was that I was not going to be a victim to the diagnosis. I would not give my power to what this medically meant or a future of chronic back pain. So the first step of my healing is that I kept the ownership of my power and I didn't give my power away. I continued doing the blessings of the energy center meditation and all the breath work that I'd learned from the retreat every day. I practiced diligently and still do every day. I continued the treatment with the chiropractor as well, and I was starting to see some progress, but the pain was still there. Now, the intention that I set before every meditation was that I wanted wholeness in my entire spine and joints. I also set the intention to release all abandonment consciousness that I was carrying, known and unknown, anywhere in my body, and to release all victim mentality. I also added a second meditation, which was called Love Your Body, in addition to the blessings of the energy center. And I did the Love Your Body meditation 2 to 3 times per week. On weekends, I did the pineal gland or body electric meditation, and all these are available on Dr. Joe's website. And when I went to the gym, I started applying what I learned in the walking meditations. And Dr. Joe says you got to get good at doing what you're doing with your eyes closed as well with your eyes open. So I walked on the treadmill and focused on releasing all abandonment consciousness and victim mentality and walking in my new healed body, believing that I was completely healed. The second step for me in my journey is to give gratitude for my healing before it has even happened. I started and ended my day with gratitude for my healing every day as though it had already happened. I would say I am grateful for the complete healing of my spine and joints. I'm grateful that my spine and joints are restored to wholeness. Well, I started to see some improvements, but the pain hadn't completely gone away. In March of 2025, I got a consult with another chiropractor who had a different approach. He practiced what is referred to as German New Medicine. According to German New Medicine, every illness or disease has an emotional component, and illness and disease is caused by an emotional shock to the body. His theory, based on our conversation, is that a major event occurred to me when I returned to work after being a caregiver to my mom of 5 years. I was a caregiver to my mom throughout lockdowns, and I wasn't able to work because she was quite frail and I couldn't expose her with what was going on due to COVID. And around October of 2021, I started going back to work. And with the help of my grief counselors, we mapped out a plan to help me get back to my new reality. The job that I was, the various jobs in physiotherapy that I was applying for offered me a salary of that of a new graduate. Now, prior to that, I had extensive experience as a physiotherapist working with members of the Canadian Olympic team for women's hockey, gymnastics, beach volleyball, and some other sports. I worked with athletes of the Commonwealth Games and many other athletes at different professional levels. I worked with one of the biggest Bollywood stars in India as her physiotherapist and personal trainer. Her name is Deepika Padukone. I had all this extensive experience, and I was quite surprised that I was being offered the salary of a new graduate as I was re-entering the workforce. This doctor theorized that this was a shock to my body and that I had equated what I was being paid to my perceived value. So he came up with a statement for me to work with and to recite to myself every day, and that is, my true value is determined by the unique perspective that I bring to this world, the wisdom that I have gained from the life that I have lived, and all of that amalgamated with everything that I am good at determines my true value. And in other words, not how much I was getting paid. He said, if this works, most of the pain, if not all, should completely go away and in a very short amount of time. Some of it went away, but not completely. He wasn't too off because there was this idea of a lack of self worth or worthiness, which I finally understood when I was in Cancun in November of 2025 at Dr. Joe's 10-day advanced retreat. And I'll get to that part in a bit. When my mom transitioned in October 2020, my grief counselor said to me that grief is like having all this love and having nowhere to put it. As a caregiver, I gave all of myself and more to my mom. When she transitioned, I not only grieved her, but the identity I knew. Everything changed. I had to start all over in every part of my life. When she said that, I thought, okay, what if I started giving myself that love? And this was a radical shift for me and very difficult. I was so used to putting my mom's needs before my own that to start to give myself love first and foremost, that was difficult. And it was going to take some practice, but I was willing to do it. So I created a self love practice for myself. As soon as I wake up, I look at myself in the mirror and I say the words, "Blessed am I to live in such a beautiful temple. Blessed am I to love in such a beautiful temple." And then I wrap my hands around my heart and I hug it. And I look into my eyes and I say, "Farhan, I love you and I'm so proud of you." In other words, I gave all that love to myself. After mom, I was looking for meaning and purpose. What is my purpose now that I'm not a caregiver? That was something that I had been in deep search for. I got my answer, but it was not what I expected. On the advice of a really close friend, I started this exercise where I ask love, which you can also call source, God, Allah. I would ask love, what would you have me know today? I begin this process by putting my hand on my heart and I take 3 breaths, sometimes more. And once I feel connected to my heart and love, or source, or God, I ask the question. And then for 5 minutes, I write down everything that comes to me. This writing is a practice that is referred to as writing from a stream of consciousness, so that the information is coming through you and not from you. And I did this every day starting approximately October 2025. On October 27th, 2025, I asked love about my purpose. I said, "Dear love," or I asked, "Dear love, what would you have me know today about my purpose?" And this is the response I got. Now, normally I wouldn't share such a personal response, but I think it's important and it's relevant to my healing journey. So I'll share with you with the response that love gave me. And love said, "Dear Farhan, we love you so much. We love you so much. We love you so much and we are always proud of you. Farhan, we love you eternally. There is nothing more you have to do to be worthy of our love. There is nothing you need to do to be worthy of the love of others. There are no conditions you need to place on yourself to be worthy of anyone's love, including your own. Your own unconditional love for yourself is the mastery of life. That is the only purpose to search for. Take your heart and make it your priority. There is no distance to travel other than from your head to your heart. There lies your purpose, to love yourself unconditionally. Do you feel that? Do you feel that in your heart? Can you give yourself the love you desire? Can you give yourself the attention you deserve? Can you treat yourself with utmost kindness, compassion, sincerity, heart centered, pure love? That is all. This is the message we have for you today, and we will be here to remind you. We understand the human mind and its conditioning. We uplift you to the highest degree as you are the most powerful creation in the universe. We stand by you through your greatest and lowest times without any judgment. Farhan, love yourself with truest unconditional love, and you have mastered your life to incredible frequencies that will create for you a life beyond your wildest dreams. We love you. Farhan, sincerely love. The big aha for me when I got this message was that, yeah, I was loving myself, but not unconditionally. And I had to make a big shift. When I saw myself in the mirror, it had to be without judgment and conditions. True, unconditional love. Until then, the love I had for myself was conditional. There was a I love you, Farhan, followed by a but if you, for example, had better abs, a bigger paycheck, a nicer whatever, judgment after judgment after judgment. Just throwing out some of these as examples, but you get the idea. My practice had to shift to a place where I had no conditions on the love I have for myself. If this was my purpose, I needed to amplify and extend my practice. I thought about different ways I could express more self love to myself. Aside from the mirror work, I extended my self practice in the shower. Now, every day as I wash over my body, I name the parts and I proceed with I love you and name the body part. So, as I wash my heart, I say I love my heart. As I wash my chest, I love my chest, my lungs, all the organs, joints, and of course, my entire spine. Before I start my workouts, I give myself words of praise and not criticize or judge my body. Between sets of exercise, I repeat, I am in vibrational alignment with a healthy spine and joints. I recite this when I'm driving my car, when I'm in an elevator, when I'm at a stoplight, anytime there is a dead zone of time where I'm not doing anything, my thoughts go towards my healthy spine. And then at the end of my day, I praise myself, maybe for doing a great job with a particular patient or the way I handled a situation, whatever it may be. Now, I'm still working on this, and it's a daily practice to find ways to give myself love from me to me. But moving into 2026, I can assure you, my intention is to amplify the self love that I am giving to myself. And so the third step in my healing journey was to love myself unconditionally. Around June of 2025, I released the third season of my podcast. My podcast is something that I'm really passionate about, and it brings me joy. And I think by focusing on doing what we love and are passionate about, it really helps with our mindset and contributes to our healing. At least I believe it did for me. And when we feel good, we will experience that in our bodies. And Dr. Joe has always taught me that your body follows your mind. So, step number 4, do things that you are passionate about and brings you joy. In November of 2025, I attended Dr. Joe's first ever 10-day advanced follow-up retreat in Cancun. Most of his retreats are 7 days, but this was an advanced retreat, and you had to have attended at least one retreat in order to go to this one. Now, at his retreats and virtually, Dr. Joe has what he calls coherence healings. This is when a group of people come together to help heal another. The ones giving healings are called healers, and the ones receiving healing are referred to as healees. I have been both over the last year. I received many healing sessions as a healie, and I have participated in giving healing as a healer as well, multiple times. You can learn more about this on his website. All healings are free. They are offered virtually and in person at Dr. Joe's retreats. Well, I attended this retreat last November in 2025, and it's no coincidence that the theme was highest love. When I registered for the retreat, one of my friends who I'd met at the Orlando retreat asked if I had registered to be a Healy for Cancun, which I hadn't. To be honest, I didn't even think of it because I was feeling better, though not 100%. Well, she said to make sure to email Dr. Joe's team in advance and to see if I could still register. So I did, and I got a response saying that all the spots were currently filled. Well, she said to me, and I said to my friend, they were all filled. She said, well, when you get there, go to the registration desk and see if you can get on the list. You never know, there may be a cancellation. Well, when I got there, I met up with a friend of mine, also someone who I'd met in the Orlando retreat. And, when we went to register um, at the desk, and, she turned to me and she said, well, hey, did you get a chance to register to be a Healy? And I said, no. And so, after we registered, I just decided to go to the beach and spend the day there. Meanwhile, my friend, she was also a Healy at the event. She decided to get all the information on how I could possibly register. She went to the beach, found me, and told me that there's an opportunity for me to still register. So, we went back there. She took me to the desk and, got me to register. But I told her that I was still, I was feeling better. I wasn't 100%. And she said to me, listen, if you don't do this, this is about your worthiness. So I registered. However, all the spots were full, and I was told I would be put on a waiting list. Now, typically, at any Dr. Joe's 7-day retreat, there are 3 coherence healing sessions. However, because this was a 10-day, they were offering 6. So on the 3rd day of the coherence healings, a message went out, and on there was a list of the new Heelys, and I was accepted. I was going to be a Healy for the next 3 sessions. And then my immediate reaction was, oh, I'm just going to cancel. There's so many people here worse than me. And I know that there were other people that wanted to be a Healy, but they weren't chosen. But I thought about what my friend had said, and I decided I was going to go ahead with it. And I was really nervous. Now, prior to the coherence healings, Dr. Joe gave us a talk. And in that talk, he said, and I'll never forget this, he said, it doesn't matter if your issue is significant or not, but if you've been selected to be a Healy here today, that's no coincidence, and that you are worthy of this healing. And I took that to heart. And as I lay there, I declared that I am worthy to receive this healing. I hadn't really done that before. And if I did, I didn't realize that maybe I had an issue with worthiness or receiving. And when my friend and Dr. Joe, brought that to my attention, I then realized I must have had some resistance around it. Now, the way it works is that the Healy is laying on the floor while 6 healers are in chairs and often blindfolded and just send energy from their heart to the Healy. So then, as I lay on the floor, I surrendered, I opened myself up, and allowed myself to receive. I've had some coherence healings before virtually, but something major happened to me in Cancun. As they were sending energy to my body, it was moving. Like I was doing sit ups, I was twisting, I was turning, being stretched and pulled. It was like I did 100 sit ups. And I thought, well, if anything, I'm going to have a great set of abs after this. But in all seriousness, something was happening to me, and I was kind of thrashing around and making sounds coming through my mouth. Now, in general, this was happening to me a lot during the meditations in the retreat, and it had really amplified in intensity in Cancun. But during this particular healing, the intensity was just amplifying. And once the third session was over, I knew, I don't know how I knew that something major had happened and I was healed. I broke down crying. I was ugly crying inconsolably. And one of the Heelys got on the floor and just held me as I cried in her arms. And then each healer hugged me, and virtually all of us were in tears. I was ugly crying. I've never had that experience from any of the coherence healings I've had before. Something major happened. So I believe for me, the fifth step was I had to believe that I was worthy of the healing. And that to me is where I made the link now of what the chiropractor who practiced German medicine had told me. I think my healing required me to know that I was worthy. Now, the sixth step in this whole process was to surrender, trust, and believe. When I sat for every meditation, or when I lay there to receive healing at every coherence healing, I had to trust and let go. I had to trust in the process and believe that the universe was going to heal me completely. When I returned from Cancun, I was completely changed. I shed approximately 10 to 12 pounds. My breath work had dramatically improved. I was having physical reactions to my meditations. There was a lot of shifts releasing and changes happening. And when I returned to Toronto, I had an appointment with the chiropractor that diagnosed the scoliosis in October of 2024. And I arranged for the appointment before I left for Cancun. I had my follow up with my chiropractor on December 2nd of 2025. And this is where things get really interesting. I hadn't seen her since May of 2025. At that time, I got busy with my podcasts, but I also made a decision that I normally would not give to any of my patients, and that is that I stopped her protocol. I continued going to the gym and exercising, but I put more of my emphasis of my healing on my meditations. So I wasn't in any sort of traditional medical treatment for over 6 months. But I did the meditations and I did my self love practice daily. I went to the gym about 5 times a week, focusing on my fitness goals. I did walking meditations on the treadmill after my workout. And so now it had been just about a year since that diagnosis. So I asked my chiropractor for repeat images. And well, the x rays showed a dramatic correction of the scoliosis. It was corrected as well as the abnormal tilts and rotations. Now, keep in mind, I'm a physiotherapist. I've worked, with the Canadian women's hockey team and various sports. I have an extensive background in fitness. I was on a workout television show in Canada and in the US for 7 seasons called In Shape with Sharon Mann. I was on the Canadian Reebok team and traveled the world teaching and speaking at fitness conventions, including topics about core training. I've even published articles on core training in professional publications. So for me to stop the protocol goes against everything I know as a practitioner and fitness professional, but I believed in this work and still do. And Dr. Joe says the field, the quantum field changes matter. Keep changing the field, you change matter. And it's crazy when I think about it, how this worked. And I'm not suggesting to anyone that they stop medical treatment. I would never do that. But I just knew for me that this was the path that was going to heal me. And it did. I sat there in the chair and we reviewed the images. She pulled up the old ones and compared them to the new ones. And she said it was shockingly corrected. The tilt was virtually gone. The rotation was corrected. The scoliosis was gone. If you haven't already done so, check out the images on my social medias. And I'll also post this at the end of the video on my YouTube in this podcast. I did it. Now, my chiropractor knew that I was meditating and had attended Dr. Joe's retreat. I told her all about it from the very first session when I was giving her my history of what had happened when my back went out in Orlando. She later texted me and she said, "Great seeing you today. I feel gratitude that chiropractic played a small role in a health journey that was entirely your own, and to witness the healing power of the mind and body. Awesome. I am happy for you." I called some of my friends from the Dr. Joe community after to give them the news. I shared them. I shared with them the images of the X-ray and the outpour of emotion, of joy and happiness for me was so overwhelming. But I had to tell everyone that supported me just how much it meant to me. And so the seventh step was without a doubt the coherence healings. Every one of them made a huge difference. I want to thank my sweet friend Viviani from the Open Hearts community for putting the amazing group together that organized all the coherence healings for me. I want to thank my friends who are known as Pod 112, pardon me, from the coherence group in Cancun. All of us in this community, we are bonded by love. I cannot thank you all enough. I'd also like to thank Dr. Joe Dispenza. I am eternally grateful for him, his work, and dedication. Without him, none of this would have been possible. And lastly, I'd like to leave you with this message. If I can do this, you can too. I'm Farhan Dalla. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's episode of Elevate Your Life, a transformational podcast. I hope today's conversation has elevated you in some way and inspired you to connect, move, and meditate. I'd really appreciate your support by following and rating this podcast. Come back soon and join me for another transformative conversation.